Welcome to another interview. Our third interview today is with Ryan Bloomfield of Three Treasures, Traditional Studies and Wellness. Ryan, welcome to the show, and thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start off like we try to do every show. Give us your Kung Fu origin story, my friend.
Well, I guess I'm 46 years old. I started when I was 16, trained kind of a mixed Kung Fu system of a whole bunch of different systems, for maybe 12 years or so. And then I went to Chinese medicine college and, met Eric Tuttle, started learning, XinYi LiuHe and some Ma Hong Chen style Tai Chi and some Bagua. And, trained with him for about 13 years. And then I went to China and trained with Ming, and basically been doing that ever since and dropped everything else. So.
How did you find Master Yong? Were you introduced to him, or was that just by circumstance you got super lucky?
I do a lot of history. I'm really into finding like the history of what I'm training and trying to find the purest systems. And I was always interested in the Yang XinYi because, they never really taught outsiders. They only passed within their family. So I figured they'd have a really clear system. So I was always on the lookout and could never really find anyone. And then all of a sudden, I found, one of his friends in China who owns like a fake Shaolin temple kind of thing in China. And, he was using Yong's picture, to explain XinYi, actually 5-element XinYi. And I said that he looks familiar because I had an article from Yang and it had his picture. So I contacted the guy and I said, I'd like to learn like real Yang Family XinYi LiuHe, not 5-element. And he kind of contacted me with him. And then, I ended up going, and training with them for a month and a half, up in northern China at that temple. And it was just me and him, and yeah, so basically 12 hours a day for a month and a half, just straight Yang XinYi. So.
Wow. And so did you know Chinese when you went?
I'm from Chinese medicine school and always learning Chinese martial arts. I kind of I understand the martial arts and medicine pretty good, but conversation not so much. But me and Yang, even when I brought him here, he kind of teaches differently, like more through body and touch and stuff. So yeah, it was quite easy. And yeah, I could understand the martial art aspect of it pretty well and all the words and whatnot. So yeah. And then I'm always trying to learn, and yeah, every time I go, just learn more and more and more.
Well, what part of China were you in when you trained with Master Yong?
It was about 2.5, 3 hours north of Beijing. It was just this little village in the middle of nowhere. Like there were no real cars or anything. It was just like a really low level, Kung Fu Shaolin school for kids. But, the guy who owned it was one of Yong's friends. So he said, why don't you come up here? Actually, because we went up there because, a lot of his Yang XinYi people around him were quite upset that he was going to come and teach me.
Cause you're a foreigner.
Yeah. And, he was like, you know what? This guy really wants it. He searched me out. I want to see what he's got. So he met me up north to avoid all the bull. Yeah. The politics. It's real. It's real. Yeah. So we got to spend that time. It was quite isolated. It was really cold and miserable. And yeah, it was quite interesting. We bonded really fast. So yeah.
That's great. Did he have you demonstrate some of the previous material that you had learned?
Basically, he said, let me see everything you got. Cause I had a letter from Eric, cause I had trained with XinYi LiuHe and a couple other pretty famous masters. So I got a letter from Eric kind of stating my experience. So he wanted to see everything I had. And then immediately after I showed him every shape and everything I could think of, he said, bring it, like come at me full on. And so, yeah, he tossed me around.
There you go. There you go. Could you feel right away, like immediately when he touched you? You're like,
it was quite different. I mean, Eric was skilled, pretty highly skilled, but he had a mix of Tai Chi and other things in him. But yeah, Yong's energy was quite unique. Yeah.
And do you have experience with other types of XinYi LiuHe?
I trained LiuHe XinYi for XinYi LiuHe for 13 years with Eric. Mm-hmm. And during that time I met LiuHe, got to train with him. That really inspired me to really kind of search out more XinYi.
And how would you contrast the feel between those systems?
For LiuHe XinYi, because he had trained with many different teachers, and his system was huge, but it wasn't so organized. So it had lots of different principles from different systems, but never really put together. And he was a bit illiterate, so he couldn't really write or read very well. So
sure.
A lot of his stuff is brought from other people and other systems. Mm-hmm. It was the skills were more chopping and cutting and sideways body and really in close, tight, like almost on a line. Yang XinYi is more rooted, low, and open. Wants to get right in deep with you and grapple with you, not hit you. So we want to get in close, grapple, and then the hits are with the grapple on the way down, not our XinYi is not a hitting art, so.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
Mm-hmm. That's fascinating. So let's get into a little bit of the training of how the Yang system works, if you'd be willing to share with us. Does it have specific Qigongs? Does it have specific like power training methods? So there is a Yang Sheng method. It's new, kind of brought from Yang. His father and his grandfather, they didn't really train Yang Shengs or Qigongs or anything. They trained slow movements with the breath, but it wasn't really considered as a Yang Sheng exercise. So Yang was having problem with people kind of getting the idea of the principles. So he put together from what he saw his father do really slow and powerful, almost Neigong techniques, not really Qigong. It's more Neigong and it's really hard work. And that he uses that now to teach beginning students to get the principles and the structure. But for me, I didn't learn that way because I already had the LiuHe XinYi. I just went straight into training Siva, and that's it really for almost 5 years, just Siva, and we train it a certain way. It's more of a training method rather than a form or a collection of techniques. So I am the rookie here on the 10 animals method. What is Siva, my friend?
Siva is just a small little set, literally takes less than 30 seconds to rip through it really fast. You usually see other systems use it as a demonstration, like a form. You'll see Yang practice that or show that on a video or so, but we don't really practice it like that. It's more of a method of how you train it rather than the actual form. So it develops, it really breaks your breath, pushes your heart to a level like you've never seen, almost makes you want to pass out the way we train it. In the beginning, it's quite extreme. but yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of our other XinYis use it as a demonstration method. We use it more as a training method to really build the body, the breath, and yeah.
Wow.
But it's just a very small set, and it's just kind of considered the basics of XinYi LiuHe. And then after that, you start to learn shapes. And yeah, that's about it. We have that's half of this, that's half of the system. The other half is quite unique. It's basically entering, how to enter. It's one method to enter, which can lead to many different things. So you're not just learning one shape is this method of entering, and then you do this. You enter. Once you enter, now you burst on the shape. So there is no thought of any kind of shape or a different way of entering. It's just one way of entering, and when you get in and make contact and get close and grapple, then the shape or the XinYi happens. Where other XinYis is more like the snake will block or enter, and then the next move will come in. We enter, and once you're on, then everything begins. So it's a little different way of approaching it, and everything we learn for shapes and Siva and Yang Sheng have to apply with the enter. So you're not just going in and doing a big shape. You enter, now you do your shape. So you're always in this enter natural mode. I guess it's like a natural gate where your hands are always up, always on the center. So this is our enter. This is how we enter. It's very fluid. Yeah, there's no set blocks or anything like that. So
I love that. That's great. Would you say it's almost a two-man drill, or like a two-person set as far as the entries go? Like
sort of, but you really need to do it by yourself first. And do it fast and powerful by yourself before you really try and do it with somebody, because yeah, you need to really have the ability to change a lot. If you just would do it with a person, you hit and then you're just going to shake. So you really got to get this bursting kind of power, how to touch and how to enter. And then you kind of work that up to with your partners and do specific, you flow into, kind of have like a bit of a drill where you're on one side, they'll just throw whatever attack, and you basically do the same enter every time, but it's always you always end up somewhere different. But you're always trying to get in and grapple. That's the most important thing.
So when you get in and grapple, are you trying to hit more with the limbs, or are you trying to hit more with the body, or kind of a combination?
No, so it's not a grapple like jiu-jitsu is on you, head on you, like everything's leaning on you. That's not it. It has to be a bit of a space. You have to be empty. So a big part of Yang XinYi is this enter. You have to accept. Most XinYi is about giving power. It's actually quite the opposite. The way we hold the heart, the way we hold the body, it's accepting all the time. And this is why you can't think of fighting or blocking. You have to just enter this natural way. And this way you accept whatever comes at you, then it doesn't affect you. Only when you can kind of think about that can you really start to deal with opponents, and then they just don't affect you anymore. That makes sense.
Yeah, that is cool. That's very unique too. Would you say that there's an emotional component into the training also, like a mental
for sure,
and emotional? Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, like all the principles, you start with body principles, of course. Once you kind of get that, you start to go with the 4 points. So you have the tendon points, the muscle points, the bone points, the chi points. So our system is quite small. So it's based on just building your principles and refining. And you do these through the different theories in XinYi, which one is the 4 points. So you have to activate your tendons, you have to activate your hairs on your body, you have to activate your teeth, your bones. So once you can start layering all these skills in and in and in, the theories just get deeper and deeper and deeper. The system doesn't get any bigger, but it gets deeper and more refined, more refined, more refined.
My old roommate used to train. Well, he is still my roommate. Used to train Wing Chun with me and the XinYi with Owen. And one of the Wing Chun mottos that we have, it's like a room with 10,000 doors, but it's only a 7-foot ceiling. But Sam, my roommate, added on. He's like, well, that might be Wing Chun, but our XinYi that we study is like a room that you enter that's 10,000 stories high and 10,000 stories low. And so I always thought that deepness of a small system, how you can layer it and stack on. I mean, that's that's great training.
Yeah. And it makes it, you immediately feel the differences. You're not just learning a new shape or a new way to move. Like, it's all, in the end, it all looks the same. All the applications, the other person might not even know what you're doing. Whether it's a snake or a bear or whatever, it's quite elusive. And I think a lot of other XinYis focus on the end movement, and they pause. So in our XinYi, bursting has to create all the jings. So you have a bit of this accepting kind of power that I talk about, when you meet an opponent or you start, or even to start your movement, you have to have an implosion, to everything to the center, not an explosion or a reaction. It has to be a relaxed, accepting kind of thing. So everything will implode in, and that's what creates your movement. That's what creates the shape, and that's what happens once you're on the person. Now you burst. And it's not an explosion burst like most martial arts. It's got to go in first.
So do you think that do you from your studies and your perspective, do you think that the XinYi LiuHe is the sort of the predecessor to XinYi? I know that's kind of a big question, but
like XinYi, like 5-element XinYi?
Yeah, like a Hebei XinYi or a Shanxi XinYi.
I don't know. I don't understand 5-element XinYi too much.
That's fair.
I know a lot of people who practice it. I just don't understand it according to XinYi LiuHe terms, because we're very much forward, gripping with the toes, heels ready to go up, never sitting back, never in the back leg. We're always rolling, always moving. So I don't understand. I understand that because the other XinYis focus on this straight back power at the end of the move. It makes sense that it would come down to XinYi, 5-element XinYi, but the way we kind of view it, I don't understand it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
It's powerful. It's powerful. I just don't understand it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, if that makes sense. Yeah.
What are some of the weapons that you guys train in your system? Do you guys train weapons? I see you with the spear a lot, so I'm guessing you do.
Yeah, we train spear is a big one, and then we have the Yang family weapon.
Ryan is going up to get the Yang family weapon, which is a...
So basically, it's like a nice staff with a big, huge whip on the end.
Nice.
What?
That's awesome. It almost looks like a knife.
No, it's a big, heavy. It weighs about, 2 pounds. It's pretty huge. Yeah.
Like a spear, like a giant spear tip. So it's like a staff with what would you say, like 2 or 3 feet of rope, and then you've got a spear tip. And does that also have a little round iron spear, like round rings on it?
Yep. Yeah. So basically, it's called a sheep's whip, the Yang Family sheep's whip. And you can fight with the spear, and at the same time as you do your bursting power, the back comes whipping around and smashes as you just fight with the spear like normally. And that just kind of happens to every time you burst. It just makes it fly at the opponent. Either it comes over or under or wraps them up. So yeah, it's pretty brutal.
Wow. Now, is that weapon sort of specific to your system, or is that more common?
Yeah, so this is what Yang Danqing, Yang's grandfather, or Yang's Yang, our lineage kind of. This is what he liked to use. This was his version of the two-section staff, I guess.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Would you actually tell us a little bit about the history of the Yang family as far as their XinYi LiuHe goes?
Yeah, for sure. So everybody kind of knows the four knights of Joko, which is Shang Shui Yang Danqing, Yang's grandfather, Lu Songgao, and Song Gao Ben. They were the four knights of Joko. So Shang Shui was the eldest. He came from another system called Fanzi Chuan. He was already famous master. He got beat by Zhong and basically just gave it up and started training XinYi. Yang Danqing was only a couple years younger than him, so they were very close and they trained together mostly. Yang's grandfather, he started when he was very young and only trained XinYi LiuHe. And then Lu Songgao came along about 10 or 12 years later, so he was a youngin'. And Song Gao Ben was also around the same age, so they were a bit younger. And then they started training together. This is why Lu Songgao got so skilled, because he had the best. He had these guys who've been training together, like very powerful for years and years and years. And then he came along and they basically poured it into him.
Sure.
That's awesome. Whew.
Yeah.
To be that guy.
Yeah, for sure. Sure. And then Lu Songgao also learned from other teachers as well. So, his system is quite different. Basically Yang Danqing, had passed his knowledge to his son, but he got hurt. The system was kind of not really being passed or whatever. So, basically, Yang Langba, who is, sorry, I'm getting mixed up with names.
It's all good.
Yang Langba. So this was, his nephew. This was his nephew. And then Yang Feng Tong was also his nephew. They all called, Yang Feng Tong was Yang's grandfather, or Yang's father. They all called him grandfather. So Yang doesn't come from, he's not a direct son. He's the nephew. So, and he came a lot later. So Yang's father learned from Yang Danqing Yang Danqing was already in his 40s and 50s. So he actually got to see a full system, like an actual system that his father had created. And then also when Yang's father came along, Yang had an elder brother, but he died. So when Yang started training with his father, he also started training. His father was in his 40s, 50s, 60s. So he also got to see like a more refined system. So I think this is kind of why the Yang system is quite different, is because when they did train with their teachers, their fathers were quite old and already refined at that time. So if that makes sense.
Yeah, it sounds like they had more time to put into the system and then kind of let it mature.
Yeah.
You know, in them, and kind of have their own sort of embody what the system is trying to teach.
It was theirs at that point. And so the Yangs, Yang Danqing, Yang Feng Tong, and Yang LiuHe, they all sold dumplings for a living. They didn't teach XinYi. They promised their teacher they would not teach, only to family members. And they kept pretty good to this. Why there's not much Yang XinYi. So they sold dumplings for a living. That was their job. So they didn't have to pass it if they didn't want to.
They weren't dependent on having a school and trying to. Yeah.
Shang Li, he passed to people, all kind of people for money. Lu Songgao, same thing, was hired by all kind of people. He taught people all kind of different stuff. Whether you were Muslim, whether you weren't Muslim. Yeah. So yeah, I think this is also another reason why I was searching out Yang Family XinYi, because yeah, it seemed to be like it would come in a more pure way.
Yeah, that was going to be my kind of a follow-up question. I know that these systems are generally associated with Muslims, and is that still the case? As it's been trained in the modern age, or has it changed, or?
I think the only reason why it was considered that because some imams train XinYi and they train in the temple.
Gotcha.
In Henan. Some were skilled and some were really bad. But yeah, I think that's the only reason. It really depends on personal, every LiuHe Long was a Muslim. Other XinYi masters that I met were Muslims. They weren't quite the same level as what I would consider Yang as. They drank, they smoked, they did a lot of things that, you wouldn't normally do if you were Muslim.
Sure.
So, Yang is pretty devout to that. He was an imam for a while.
Okay.
So he is very, very religious. But he's very open too, so he doesn't expect anything from his students or anything like that. So.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's definitely a personal personal concept of that, I guess.
That's exactly what I was going to ask. That's his personal journey.
Yeah. He only speaks from that, so he doesn't really. Yeah, that's all he can from. So yeah.
I don't know if this is an answerable question, Ryan, but does the bursting come from a certain place? Because it's very unique. That's one reason I wanted to talk to you and reach out to you. Was that something that your teacher came up with, or is that something passed on through the generations, or did somebody
this
find
is
that?
in all the classics. You go through the Jings and the very last sentences. Without bursting, nothing can happen. So this is a very much a core concept and should be in all XinYi. It isn't in most other XinYis. The other XinYis tend to develop this long power, 3-point power, 3-section power. We have more Dan 10 training. The bursting happens from the Dan 10. And we use sound. Sound kind of helps create the breath, creates the movement, creates the everything. In the West, we have a lot of silent warriors, so you keep it in.
Yeah.
But let it rip. The sound should move you. You shouldn't physically be moving yourself. When you create the sound in a structure, that movement, that power should make the structure move. If that makes sense. So
yeah,
we focus on a structure, having a very powerful structure that when you burst and create power within that structure, that's where the power comes from. It doesn't come from moving forward. It doesn't come from getting momentum. If you can't create power in place with power on you, then you can't create power, period, if you're under pressure. So we always imagine somebody's on you, and when we train, somebody's got to be on you in some way. And in your mind, you also have to imagine that every time you move. You can't just move. You have to imagine pressures on you. And then physically you start with the burst. Physically you kind of start. In the end, it's mind. It just happens. The sound, everything just happens at once. So.
Is there a specific isolated sound training, or do you integrate that into all of your practices?
It should be integrated into every practice. So even when you do the Yang Sheng and you look quiet, there should be, you're working, you're doing Neigong. So if your facial muscles, your bones aren't reacting, if your tendons aren't reacting at every single time you do a burst and a movement, then you're just doing floppy Qigong, I guess. So yeah, you have to be 100% in that or else, and then you have to start layering that power. Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense.
You know what I kind of like about so far what you've talked about is it sounds like this method is very much 180 degrees the opposite of what I see most Tai Chi has turned into, because it's very much, most Tai Chi is like cooperative breathing, and you can tune out and go to another planet, where this stuff sounds like not just are you going to get a workout when you do your Qigong and Neigong, your methods of training the power, but you're going to be sweating, and you might be a puddle on the floor. For sure. And XinYi has a lot. Violence is a very important thing. The body has to feel that violence inside to create all these conditions. So you already have the body structure, but now you create that violence inside you. And that's what creates everything that happens from there. So most people want to keep people at bay, but you let them come into your violence. You accept them into it. And then you just do your thing, and you don't have to worry about the opponent at all.
Right.
Then you just suck them in automatically without trying. So there is no stick. Like most Tai Chi and other martial arts, they stick to people. We don't. You almost suck them in. You're still coming. You can still come forward and be aggressive, but they get sucked into you. As soon as they touch you, they get sucked into you. And this is that acceptance, that bursting, imploding power. It just pulls them in and basically freezes them for a second, and then it's pretty much over. So
and then that's when your power can come out.
Yeah. Then you release that burst, and then your movement, whatever it may be, a bear, whatever presents itself. That's what it looks like. But that's just the ending. Yeah.
So do these styles have any relationship to like Dai family?
No. I don't know. I don't understand. I can't speak on Dai family. I don't understand enough.
Sure.
It seems very mixed with other stuff and extreme in other ways. But yeah, I can't speak. I can only speak to my own experience. So
that's fair.
I have met some Dai. I have touched with some Dai XinYi people, but I don't think they weren't very high level, so I can't really say.
Sure.
Okay, so this is a very aggressive and very, like you're saying, violent system. What are now this will be the 180 question to that. What are some of the health benefits that you've noticed from training the Yang family system? Because you've already had a 13-year period with a teacher that was teaching the other XinYi LiuHe and the Tai Chi and a little bit of Bagua. Did you notice when you started really devoting yourself to Master Yong's method of teaching?
Immediately. Yeah, immediately. I trained with Yang for a month and a half every day. And then I came back and went to my old teacher's club. And when I moved, they're just like, whoa, like, what have you been doing, kind of thing. So right away I was kind of like, wow. And I still felt really bad, like not good. Like I still felt choppy and kind of just learning a whole bunch of stuff. So, immediately my strength increased, my breath, the way we train Siva, not just like a casual thing. It's very violent. You burst everything. It's kind of automatic. You just rip through it. Your heart basically just bursts after doing, like, you can barely get through one in the beginning. And Yang would make me stop, and I get 3 little breaths, and then I feel like I'm about to pass out, and then I have to go again, or else I would basically fall out. So you keep doing this, and yeah, within a week of doing this, you're like, oh, I can keep going. I can do another one. Now I can go, I like to mountain bike. My heart I never breathe through my mouth. You always contain the breath. You can release it if you need to breathe, but we seal our breath. If you exercise and then you quit, and you basically everything you built there is gone. So after you exercise, you keep it sealed. Your heart is beating. You have to maintain and hold this in, and then the more energy, the more power you get from that training. So we have the breathing. I can go mountain bike, climb up a hill, don't breathe through my mouth, don't get tired. People train to do this all the time, and they're still huffing and puffing. I can go run, and you don't get tired. The health benefits are crazy, considering you don't focus on health benefits. And I think that is why, as a Chinese medicine doctor, because your mind is busy doing something, that you're not focusing on your health. You're just doing it. So this is more important than doing like something for your health. So.
Owen, do you have anything? I've got a couple more questions.
Yeah, no, go ahead, man.
I was going to ask, how have you integrated this teaching with your traditional Chinese medicine practice?
To me, this is traditional Chinese medicine. So if somebody, like most of my clients that I've ever had, like, I make them train. If they don't train, I don't treat them. This is more important than acupuncture, more important than herbs, more important than whatever else can be done. This is something that you can maintain every single day. So this is like, to me, Yang Family XinYi is like a grid for your life. Everything you do, whether you grab this cup, you use those principles to do everything. So without a grid, you cannot tell what's good or bad for you. So without a system, you can go do kettlebell training, or you can go do running, or you can go, but you'll never know if it's good for you if you don't have that system to check it on. All the principles have to apply. If they don't, either you make them apply and you learn something, or it's just not a very good system, or maybe you'll come back to it later. Everything has to apply to that grid. And for medicine, that's number one. You have to know what's good or bad for you. So that's how you do it. You have a consistent training with the same principles, the same ideas. That way everything you do is applied to that. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. Did you change the way that you were? Because you were practicing Chinese medicine many years before you met Master Yong. After you met him and really started to work on the system that he has and integrate it into you, was that where you did you change how you taught or helped people with your Chinese medicine? Was that after?
Sure. For sure.
Okay.
My practice became more of a touch practice, like a massage, kind of a toy knot kind of practice. That's how I was exploring it mostly, through that. I found more out of teaching the clients. Just doing the simple Yang Sheng, just one exercise is better than any treatment that I could do. So,
wow.
And it's something that they can do on their own. Like, you have to empower that person. You can't just be the doctor. You have to give them the tool so they can do it. So,
right. It's sort of a method to maintain and maybe improve.
Yeah. And then each time they see me, if they're training, then I can immediately feel that power and just dig right in. And I instantly feel what's going on. I can help. I can give them a bit of help. I can take a bit away, you know. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. So maybe I don't want to misspeak here, but let me ask, that popped up another question. So you're using them when they train, and they come for more treatment from you, you're doing the feeling practice, and that's maybe a method of diagnosis as well?
For sure. 100%. Yeah. The more they train, the more I can feel right away. I can see them. I can smell them. You can kind of different ways of feeling that person more because they're doing something that's really familiar to me and their health is getting greater. That's my grid. If I'm their doctor, they have to kind of go under my grid or else I don't know what's good or bad for them. So when I take a pulse, I take their breath. Same as in a martial arts. If I touch somebody, I take their breath. Like I have to put them under my grid. I'm not trying to do this. This is by accepting kind of empty power, not by forcing my breath on them or anything like that. So
that is awesome. That's awesome. I mean, that to me is so dynamic in the teaching method and the practice. That to me is true. Like, I think there's too many woo-woo people out there in the Chinese world. And that to me is very practical and it's very logical.
Yeah. It has to be. It has to work immediately. There shouldn't be anything. If I tell you something, you should feel it immediately. It shouldn't be like, oh, you have to work on it for 3 months. Like it should immediately change. Like, yeah.